for us, and I'm not getting nothing in return. I don't want nothing in return. I'm not, that is my job. I look at it as the chief steward of my building. That's my job, is to inform them of this stuff, So we had an issue where one of the part-timers called me. It was like, I got sent home. I was told there was no work for me. I said, what? Well, that goes against our contract. So that's, she's talking to me, and she's kind of getting ahead of herself and talking about, maybe this place isn't for me. It's probably a layoff coming. I hear there's a layoff coming. I hear transfers are coming, because on a side note, we had a bunch of people transfer over from Concord buildings. So on top of the Pittsburgh transfers that I've referred to plenty of times throughout this pandemic, now we've had even more drivers. It's really solidified now. It's permanent. Some other drivers came out. Some other positions came out. Some part-timers followed their work, yada, yada. So one of our low seniority part-timers is concerned that she's not going to make the cut. She's already got her seniority now. And I'm trying to explain to her, look, you have seniority. I mean, you might get laid off if you do, but we got peak season coming around the way, and as soon as that hits, there's going to be plenty of work, but she not get too much into her business, but she lives on her own, so she's got to pay the bills and living in the Bay Area on your own on a part-time salary, not the business. But I respect that, I respect that someone who's doing that. So that alone right there tells me, man, what I started racking my brain out. Well, how can I figure this out? How can I help? And I'm glad I did, because so after talking to a lot of the part-timers and kind of talking to management, just kind of trying to figure this out, and, hey, so what's going to happen? Are there going to be layoffs? And so the gal who got sent home improperly, I was able to get her paid for that day, because, she didn't ask, she didn't volunteer to go home, she didn't ask to go home, she didn't even agree to go home. She was instructed to go home. So, I think that was kind of that wasn't cool. That wasn't cool. But I was able to resolve that issue for that day. She was still concerned about layoff and was actually considering quitting. And I said, look, there's ways around this. So I remembered that when you are laid off on a shift, you have a right to maybe go to another shift. So we have two part-time shifts, the early morning shift and the PM shift. And so I talked to all the guys on the PM shift, and I said, hey, look, if they do a layoff list, you guys are high enough on the seniority list to work the early AM shift if you want to. So they didn't know that. I didn't remember that till the last minute. So, sure enough, the part-timers huddled up and they were able to work something out, and, there were volunteers willing to go to the AM shift. Now that unfortunately affects the lowest seniority, likely people who are on their 70 days on the AM shift, but, that's just how it rolls, seniority rules here. But all those part-timers on the PM are still working at the company. No one got laid off. Everyone's happy. The guy who actually who volunteered to go to the AM shift, I talked to him in the morning. I saw him. I was like, hey, what's up? I don't know his name. I forgot his name. I said, hey, what's up? Oh, so you came to the AM shift, huh? He's like, oh, yeah. I was like, you like it? And he just kind of grinned. He's like, oh, hell yeah. And, I never know, though. I don't know if I would want to prefer to work a 4:30 to 8:30 AM shift, but, he was like, yeah, I guess, some people look at it like they have the rest. He said, actually, I asked him, I said, what do you like about it? He said, man, it just flies. It's easier and it flies. So I guess, in that AM shift, it really, you're moving. I mean, you work, but you're moving. And that PM shift, you're working too, but there might be some lulls in it, I think time passes by a little bit slower. Maybe he likes having, the rest of his day open and doesn't have to worry about going to work at 4:30 p.m. I don't know, but everyone was I feel like was a winner in this, and that wouldn't have happened if I wasn't working on those relationships with those part-timers. If I wasn't in the know or create those relationships to where they were, and other drivers look out for them too. Other drivers like, hey man, I talked to so-and-so, you might want to check in with this and that. So we're constantly communicating as drivers, as stewards, and I'm constantly got information coming in, and I'm trying to piece it together, make sense of it. It's like, dude, there's got to be something we can do. So, if people weren't communicating this, if I didn't have those, if I wasn't building those relationships with those part-timers, introducing myself, someone might have made a decision that they, wouldn't have realized that they regretted. Someone might have quit and just said, you know what, and again, didn't realize that, seniority, like I was trying to explain to her, I was like, look, when if you get laid off, you're the first one they call back. They can't call Joe Schmo they laid off 6 weeks ago. They can't call back someone with lower seniority than you. You're the one. And, I was trying to explain a few things like that, and I just don't think, if you're only there for a few months, you're still learning the concept of being a part of a union, So, I'm glad, I do look at it like, man, you never know. I would hate for someone to quit and, maybe they go through life and, like, it's a tough job, but the benefits are great, and if you hang in there, the money will be great too. It's not all too fabulous, working part-time hours with part-time wages. That really is probably one of the downsides of being an employee, but, if you're someone with kids, someone with a family, then that's worth it alone right there. But, I can't stress enough, start working on those relationships. It can take a few weeks to build some good ones. It could take a few months, years. I mean, I've been doing this for years. I've been doing this, like, really focusing on building these relationships with part-timers for like probably 4, maybe 5 years. We got drivers now that I was really working with solid on when they were part-timers. And, once they become drivers, once they get out of their 30 days, I let them be. I check in with them once in a while. They're not, they're grown folk now. They're grown folk already, but, they hold on a sec. Thought I might have a situation on the sidewalk, but we're good. But, they're grown folk and everything, but, I don't look out for them as much. Now they're their own drivers now. They have nothing to worry about. Oh, I don't want to say nothing to worry about, but, now the drivers do a better job of looking out for other drivers than unfortunately they do for the part-timers. So I kind of hand that off to them without them even realizing that's what's happening. Then I move on to the next wave of new employees. And, you do this enough times. What my goal for this really is to I'm constantly I want these guys and gals to just give back to the next wave. Now, I've mentioned this a few times throughout the course of this entire venture on podcasting, that, when I first got here, there wasn't a lot of giving back to the younger drivers. I'm not saying it never happened, but we had a lot of guys on the verge of retirement. That's really what they were focused on. It felt like a rudderless ship to me. I'm not saying no one wasn't doing anything, but I just felt like there should have been more. Looking back, I felt like there should have been more. So what my goal with all this is to give back as much as I can to as many of the younger generations, the next wave of part-timers, the next wave of drivers. And I just want them to start giving back eventually. I recently started kind of telling them and sharing with them, the stewards aren't going to be here long. Before you know it, 5-10 years is going to pass, and most of us are going to be retired or out of here, and it's going to be them. And what are they going to be about? I hope that we are able to share this with them, and I hope that they're able to retain it and use it. But I don't know. But at least when I retire here, I know I've done my best to give back as much as I can, and I do want them 5-10 years down the road to think back like, man, that shit Jeremy laced us with was real. I didn't know what he was talking about then, but I know what he's talking about now. Like, I really want that to be a thing, and I want them to give back to the new generation. I'm really glad that, we started working on this when we did because, man, the growth that we've experienced this year, I did not see this kind of growth coming back in 2016 when I became a steward, or 2018 when I started the podcast. I knew we were going to grow, but the growth that we have now, and I was talking about this with a couple of the stewards before. I was like, man, just imagine if we didn't do anything. Imagine if we were just kind of like the stewards that are just like, oh, hey, you need us? Oh, what do you need? You need something? Oh, I love the crew that I work with. The stewards that I work with, we all care. We all, dedicate a lot of time to making this a better building, a stronger building, a proactive building. But we can never stop until it's time to retire, because it's, you just got to keep your foot on the pedal. And, I'm going to keep working with these part-timers as long as I can until, even when they do consider me the grandpa of the building, that point, that's just around the corner, But so my whole point to all this is, no matter where you're at, no matter what company, what building, look around and just ask yourself, what are you doing to give back to that next generation? Well, who is helping that cause? Who is hurting that cause? Start to build a team if you don't have one already. Reach out to the younger folk. Hey, what's your name? What you doing? Ask a little bit about them. You don't have to get to know their life story or nothing. Just, hey, just read them, man. That shit goes a long way. A lot of them, while I said, there are some people that just, you can tell don't want to fuck with me, and that's fine. But you can tell there are people that are like, man, what the fuck's going on here? Will someone tell me something? Will someone show me something, teach me something? Because when I do talk to a lot of them, they are appreciative, and they're like, man, I feel like they've told me, man, I feel like people don't know what the fuck's going on around here. And they're talking about their management team too sometimes. Like, they're like, man, I ask them questions and they don't know shit. So, and to to give those guys and gals benefit of the doubt, they're all brand new to the management team. They're not trained. That is my job, is to inform the members, right? And that's not really their job. And a lot of them often tell them, hey, go talk to Jeremy. You got to go find Jeremy. So even though the part-timers have their own stewards, I still get calls. I still, people finding me. I pull into the parking lot and, people are kind of waiting to, got a question, got something going on. Actually, even this week, I got a call. Someone felt that their seniority was violated on moving into a full-time position, and I looked into it. It took a few days. That's one of the things that about this is when people do reach out to me with issues, you got to look into it. It's not something I can just find out the answer to in 5 minutes. I got to talk to a few people. Maybe I have to look at some bid list or some seniority list or updated seniority list or vacation time, whatever. I'm constantly getting questions, and it's not those. Getting that information isn't always just at the snap of a finger. So, but every day I'll check in with someone, say, hey, I don't want you to think I forgot about you. I talked to so-and-so, so I'm waiting on this. I'm constantly keeping them updated too. Like, oh, thank you. So, with this one, someone felt that their seniority was violated. I looked into it. It was fortunate that I was just kind of able to get the information in a timely manner, because usually I feel like sometimes I hit walls and dead ends, and once or twice that I can't even do nothing about it unless I file a grievance. But by then, sometimes it's already resolved on its own, or the person's like, it's not that big of a deal or whatever. But I followed up. All right, I looked into everything I could, talked to HR. Connected that person with HR, talked to him the next day, and I said, man, is everything good? He said, yeah, everything good, thank you. And again, this is also someone that, I don't have a lot of interactions with, but every time I see him, I greet him, I know him by name. He once or twice he's asked me, a question before in the past. So, I knew that, I love it when people do ask questions, even if I don't have the answers, then I love it when people are engaged. So, just, if you're not putting yourself out there, start. If you see full-timers putting themselves out there for the part-timers, man, ask them how it's going. See if there's anything you can do to help, man. I'm always asking drivers, for help. Hey, this or that. Sometimes they're more willing to than sometimes they are, or sometimes they're not willing at all. It's hit or miss sometimes with getting help from the other drivers, but again, we got our core of stewards and drivers that I know are willing to help if I really need.